Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Hey, what's up, Blazer fans? Welcome to the Blazers Edge podcast, part of the Almighty Baller Radio Network. I'm Tara Bowen-Biggs. This is Dan Meringue, and at long last, we've got basketball to discuss. Dan, how excited are you?
Hell yes.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay, well, I was trying to figure out how on earth we were going to get started today, because there's just a lot to process, considering we, before that we were like searching for Twitter and Instagram to find anything to talk about.
Give
and
me
now
a story.
now we actually have stuff. So here's what I thought. It's our little icebreaker for the day. So let's start on the count of 3. Let's each say one word that describes how we're feeling about the team right now. Okay? So I'll count to 3, and then we're each going to say the word. You got that?
Sure.
Okay, you need a sec, or you got a word?
I've got something.
Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3. Hopeful.
NSFW? That's as far as I'm going with it right now. I'm just stoked. Like, the fact that we have games like every day. I'm sitting here as we're recording this, watching the Rockets and Knicks play preseason basketball. The Knicks. I mean, this is like, I'm just happy as could be right now. Like, the basketball is back, and I'm thrilled about it. It's just, it's probably about the only time where I can sit here and watch James Harden complain about not getting free throws when he drove to the rim and nobody touched him, and not be angry at the world.
We got to capture this as like in a bottle, this excitement.
I mean, this preseason honestly has been fun because the Blazers have done some things that I didn't expect them to do.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So yeah, this is inherently like the happiest I'll be all season, probably, unless they somehow magically win like 55 games. But I'm just sitting here going, okay, yeah, there's still a lot of holes, but hey, we're having fun. So there's that. Like, the black hole of awfulness hasn't sunk in yet, so I'm pretty stoked.
Well, that's why my word was hopeful, because nothing is never going to be more hopeful than we are right now. But I think it's hopeful too, because I personally have seen some things in these preseason games that I think that the team can really build on. So let's recap them real fast, and then maybe we'll get into some specifics, talk about a little bit about what we talked about last week. We're recording this before Game 4, so we are halfway through the preseason. They lost to Phoenix, and the two starting in the 3 and 4 were Ed Davis and E.T., and then they won in Toronto, and in that lineup, they featured Aminu and Harkless. And then the Clippers, they beat the Clippers. And
of course, that's the game they start Swanigan.
Swanigan and Aminu started. Yeah, so what do you have to say about what we've seen so far?
I'm going to start where I want to start here, because this is all about me, I, and I was right.
I just want to keep you happy, Dan.
Swanigan is a monster, and I was driving this hype train from day one. And I am thrilled to see him ball out.
By day one, do you mean by draft day, or do you mean after you first saw him play in Summer League? Because I was in the room on draft day, and I would not exactly say you were super excited on draft day.
I was more angry about the Collins pick than I was happy about the Swanigan pick. I'll be dead honest about that. That Collins pick irritated me to no length of doubt. It's just, I still think it's a huge reach, but like I said, I've calmed on that. I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to give Collins the benefit of the doubt. He's 19 years old. He's shown some things, and he hasn't been a complete and unmitigated disaster the time he's been on the floor post Summer League. So good, great, Graham. This ain't about him. This is about Swanigan.
Okay, now you can go talk about Swanigan.
This is about Caleb. I've loved everything that he's done so far, and he's only played like 7 games, 10 games, whatever the heck it is, compared with Summer League and preseason. And to me, No one on this team has shown that they are more deserving of the minutes at the 4 than Caleb Swanigan. He gives more flexibility and more options for Terry Stotts than any singular player on this roster, not named Dame, CJ, or Nurkic. He needs to be out there. He needs to be playing. The guy can rebound. He's 260 pounds. He got the ball in the corner, off the catch, pump fake, drives, gives the fake pass, then dumps the pass off to a cutting Collins in traffic for a dunk. I mean, the possession later, he's catching at the high post and showing off his post game. You know, everything the guy's done has been phenomenal so far.
How have you seen him progress through these 3 games? Have you seen improvement?
He looks like well, I mean, he came out in night 1 looking like a 3-year vet. Like, this is not a rookie. He doesn't have any deer in the headlights. He doesn't look lost. He doesn't ever get caught. Is he going to make mistakes? Sure. But this is a guy who is ready for the NBA. There's a few guys in this draft class already. And God, I hate to even admit this, but the Lakers have one in Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, apparently. Wow.
I mean, there are a few guys in this class that it's not just their talent, it's their maturity, and not just their social maturity. It's their understanding of the game, of who they are and where they are in their development, and they know what they can do, and they're confident. And it's not like fake confidence either. These guys go out there and they know they belong on night 1.
So with Swanigan, because I know a lot of people are, you know, we have a lot of loyal listeners who've been listening all summer, but there's also people who are starting to tune in because the season is starting up and they're trying to get caught up on what they missed. How would you describe basically what Swanigan brings to the team?
The thing is there's a lot of people that want to compare him to Zach Randolph, and there's a lot of people that want to say he's kind of like a Draymond Green. Sure, you can say that. And he has certain things of those players. He's not Draymond defensively, and he's not Zach offensively. But if you want to say that the certain things about his game remind you of them, sure. He's got a better post game and a more refined post game than most bigs at all in the NBA right now, let alone guys that are coming out of college. Like, he has multiple moves, counter moves, and counter moves in the post. That's a real thing. He's an elite level rebounder. He has a nose for the ball that's nearly unmatched in the NBA.
Can I tell you one thing I like about him?
What's that?
He shoots the ball without even thinking about it.
Oh, like, that comes with that maturity though. Like,
he
knows when he gets the ball in a spot that when he's supposed to take a shot. And we saw that on opening night in the preseason. He caught that ball at the 3-point line and let it fly from the wing. And the whole crowd went nuts. Like, whoa. We got a 6'10", 260-pound guy that can bang threes and doesn't hesitate. Like,
no hesitation. It's amazing.
My Twitter feed was like, well, see you later, Alan Crabbe. That summed up my Twitter feed. And while that's a bit of a rush to say that Swanigan's going to produce or have production level from the 3-point line as high as Crabbe was, the idea that he could replicate that because he's taking the shots he's supposed to take when he's supposed to take them, it's an idea so foreign to Portland fans recently that they were just shocked into what they saw. So Swanigan isn't going to be the end-all, be-all, fix everything. I think everybody's just really excited, including myself, because he's bringing so many things that Portland have needed for years now. He brings toughness and grit. He brings skill at the power forward. The power forward position has been a black hole since LaMarcus left. And pre-LaMarcus, I mean, they had Zach, but it was a different understanding of what that was. Zach in his time in Portland was productive, but the people always wanted more. I think they wanted what Zach Randolph turned into in Memphis. So right. It's kind of been this weird transitory period from Zach to LaMarcus and then now to probably Swanigan. People have been playing the power forward position since LaMarcus left as some sort of lottery, you know? Well, he couldn't win the spot. You have it. Well, he couldn't hold the spot. Now you have it. You play center. Screw it. Play power forward. We'll see if you can stick. I mean, they've thrown nearly everybody they could at that spot, and now it looks like they may have somebody who not only deserves it but can own it and hold it down. And that to me is the biggest part, is that maybe they finally have somebody that they lock into a position again and go, okay, we know who's going to be here, and this guy's an answer long term.
Yeah, it would be really great if we finally have a starting 5. You know, we might be up to a starting 4, the 5 that we could just rattle off and know exactly. Like half the time last year, I couldn't even remember who was the 3 because, I mean, it was Harkless, but then sometimes it wasn't, and I don't know. It was hard to even keep track because it was the positions weren't held with authority, and like you said,
No.
he owns this position. We're going to talk a lot about Swanigan this year, I'm sure. So let's pivot and talk a little bit about our other rookie and your first impressions with Zach Collins. I know you said you weren't knocked off your seat watching him.
He looks
but
like a rookie. That's
what'd
the
you
thing.
see?
He now, instead of looking like a high school player in the NBA, because I mean, hyperbole or not, he was god awful in summer league. He was completely and totally unplayable. So to see that growth from that to what he is now he just looks like your rookie. And you've seen some things from him. And I've seen some people on Twitter and in the comment threads. He's moving his feet incredibly well defensively. No, he's moving well. Like it's nothing earth-shattering. He's done some nice things. There was a play where both him and Swanigan trapped on a pick and roll and forced a turnover.
I loved that play. That was in the first game.
It was the first game when they first got on the floor together.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could see that they were both hungry. And here's the thing that I do like about Collins that I can say without any kind of backhanded compliment. I love his energy and I love his hustle.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only going to get him so far. He's going to have to show that he can stay on the floor without fouling like crazy, and we'll talk about that. And be more than just a big guy.
Okay, I see with Zach Collins, I've seen him in different places that I'm not used to seeing people over the last few years. I see him open in empty space, and I don't recall seeing that from our forwards as often as I have in these last few games. And it's only been a few times. But in my mind, he seems to know where to be in a way that I haven't seen in the last couple of years. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that a lot of folks are very excited about what they've seen from Zach Collins, because it's something that they haven't seen for a while.
He's active. That's a thing.
More than we were expecting out of him, considering we've been warned over and over again that, this is a building process. And with both of these guys, we have to temper our expectations. I'm never going to be able to get you to temper your expectations on Collins right now. I think that train has left the station. But we do need to remember over and over again, we've been told about Collins that he will be, brought along. So I don't think we're going to see him as much as we've seen him recently, but I think he quits himself really well for a very young and not very big guy either, who, he could be thrown all over he has a hard time holding his position, but he's not totally weak. He's not being thrown all over the place. Every time I feel like he gets in, he gets a little bit stronger and a little bit more used to how to make people not move him, at least move him so much. And again, getting to those spaces where there isn't anybody and he doesn't have to worry about someone running into him, because now he's open, he's got the ball, and he's turning around and shooting. Again, another guy who shoots without hesitation.
I think the thing with Collins, for me at least, is that the bar was set so low after Summer League, and this may be true for why people have been excited about what he has or hasn't done on the floor, is that the bar was so unbelievably low that anything above that just looks amazing. Whereas with Swanigan, the bar was already high and the hype was already high. And as much as I'm hyping him up, that I don't think Swanigan's going to be, an all-star. I just think he's going to be an incredibly good player for what Portland needs. With Collins, I think he's still 2 years away from providing anything. And if he gives Portland 10 to 12 minutes a night, that to me is a win from a development perspective. I don't really see him getting on the floor all that much. I think you're right. I think him getting the minutes he's getting right now is the most minutes he'll get all season, barring injury.
Well, let's move on to some more specific questions. And do you have anything else you want to say just about general observations about how we pretty much just talked about the rookies, observations about any of the other players in general before we get more specific?
Dame and CJ are in mid-season form.
Man, those guys are good.
They're legitimately, Dame is he looks just like he did to start last season. Remember, the beginning of last season, Damian Lillard was on an absolute MVP level tear. I mean, the numbers he was putting up I think it was the first 3 weeks, maybe month of the season, He was, I think it was like 30,
Yeah, he was
30.7 boards, 6 assists, something like that. I mean, it was absolutely batty what he was doing to start the season. Then, of course, you know, he wore down the season, took a hell of a turn. But, I mean, he's going absolutely nuts right now. CJ looks phenomenal. He looks effortless. He's had a couple subpar shooting nights, but he's getting to his spots probably quicker, faster, and easier than I think I've seen him in his entire time in Portland. So those two guys are getting it done. And then the other one, obviously, is Nurkic. When you talk about Portland, those are the three guys you're going to talk about. And we'll talk about Nurkic more particularly in a few actual spots. But that jumper.
Yeah.
God, for a 7 foot, 270-pound dude, that jumper is silky smooth. So, I mean, those little things from those guys, the two big time guys being ready, Nurkic having a no doubt jumper. This isn't Blake Griffin toying with a jumper and tweaking his mechanics. Like, Nurkic came out and from game one has taken it with as much confidence as you can take a jumper.
Yeah.
So that to me is huge for Portland as far as what they can do and how they can attack going forward.
I have a theory based on absolutely nothing that Nurkic is feeling like I am. Like, he's sick of hearing about how good Joker is in Denver. And Nurkic is like, okay, they want to talk about a really good center who can do all kinds of things. Look at me. Look no farther than me, because he's tired of hearing about
his
Jokic.
matchup. Yeah, look at his matchup against Jokic last year after the trade to Portland.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no doubt that he's constantly looking to show.
He is tired of hearing that.
Yeah, no, man, that's by no means a stretch.
It's all the national media is just absolutely in love with Denver right now. And I have a lot of wonderful friends who are Denver fans, and they're awesome. And I totally appreciate them, because I think they're a lot like Portland fans. But man, the whole national media talk about Denver is like, come on, everybody, just relax. Let's hold on here. Well, I wanted to make actually one more observation about what I've seen in this preseason, and that's attitude. And I think after the game on Sunday, Damian talked about the attitude that he's approaching these preseason games with, and I thought it bodes well for the attitude that we've talked about that they need to come out with when the actual season starts, because we all know that that's their key, is coming out to a strong start, not getting off and losing a bunch of close games at the beginning. It's really key that they come out right at the beginning when their schedule is a little bit softer and really take control. And he talked about on Sunday, he said the urgency is different. We can't come in and say, oh, it's just the preseason. That can't be our mentality. We've got to come out and treat it like it's a real game, how focused we are to whatever scouting report they give us and how much we care about it. And I love that attitude coming from Damian, coming from the top, saying, guys, we are not acting like this is a preseason game. Every single game has to be a real game. And I appreciate that. It shows me that I think they're coming in with the attitude that we are hoping that they're going to come in with.
And we have some slightly breaking news kind of on that front. Jason Quick just put out on Twitter that Stott says the plan to play Lillard, McCollum, and Nurkic big minutes, which kind of goes along with what you're saying, is now uncertain. This is heading into the game against Sacramento, because Sacramento is planning on sitting most of its main guys.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that still plays out. Does Stott still get his guys big minutes here, even though it's not necessarily against the top tier competition, to get them ready, to kind of get them in the swing of things? Or do they not let them, or does he just kind of sit them tonight against Sacramento and not let them get lazy? Not that they would, just that the idea of going against lesser competition may kind of.
It'll be good to see how they react to that, because I mean, that what we want to do is see them react to that, not like their lesser competition, because anything can happen on any night, and that's what happens. That's how you get caught up. And even if Dame and CJ don't play, if their attitude of this is serious trickles down to everybody else who gets minutes and they're out there to prove something, I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it'll be interesting kind of see how that plays out tonight. I'm kind of irritated because De'Aaron Fox was one guy I wanted to see.
Yeah.
For Sacramento, because Dame has struggled in the past against guys that are just lightning quick, and Fox may be the quickest player in the NBA now.
Yeah, so, he's so fast.
I'm kind of disappointed we kind of get robbed of that one, but let's push on.
Yeah, let's move on, and kind of keeping with the aggressiveness theme. We talked about it last episode too, and we talked about how much the Blazers foul.
Yes.
And so, what did you see with regards to that?
A metric crap ton of fouls. The Portland Trailblazers lead the preseason in fouls. They were lowering the boom with frequency.
Are they good fouls though?
There's a whole lot of reaching, and there's a whole lot of teaching being done by opponents, but there's a lot of hard fouls too. Mm-hmm. Swanigan has lowered the boom a couple times. It was kind of nice. He let Serge Ibaka know about it when they played Toronto. Caleb Swanigan got his first of what I'm assuming is going to be multiple technical fouls this year. Mm-hmm. Caleb Swanigan is going to lead the Portland Trailblazers in technical fouls. There is my not so hot take this year.
Okay, we'll write that one down.
He has an attitude that permeates the team. And this is something I've been calling for years now. Portland needs a blank hole. They need that guy on the field. They need that guy on the court. Like they need one of those guys out there to stir the pot. And that comes with that attitude. And Nurkic just talked about it, being one of the bad boys. Now it's kind of hard to take him seriously with that mask on because
he looks like Billy and Beer.
But yeah, I mean, there have been some message and tone setting fouls even in the preseason, but there have been an abundance of stupid reaching fouls too. So
I looked at the box scores such as they were, because in preseason it's really hard to track them down, and sometimes you have to kind of go backwards to get to them. Yeah. But I was looking at the fouls, how many fouls they got to how many minutes they played. So in game 1, Nurkic got 2 fouls in 16 minutes. In game 2, he got 5 fouls in 17 minutes. And then, of course, he fouled out in 24 minutes. And this is Nurkic, his, third year in the league. Mm-hmm. That seems like a lot of fouls for someone who's been around for a while. Now, let me tell you Collins, because he's kind of like the second worst offender, if you might say that, I think. Or first, depending on how you look at it. He had his first game 5 fouls in 22 minutes, and then he had 4 fouls in 22 minutes, and then finally he had 3 fouls in 20 minutes. So his fouling actually went down a little bit each game. So what should we take from that?
They foul a lot because they're covering up for atrocious perimeter defense. That's not going to change.
Okay. Break that down a little bit. They foul a lot. So Collins is fouling underneath the basket?
Collins is fouling underneath the basket. He's dropped his arms a ton. But he's also fouled out on the perimeter trying to play higher in pick and roll coverage because he moves better. Nurkic,
he's also getting blocks out there. He's gotten a couple blocks.
Yeah, he's got a couple blocks, and he'll continue to do that. I don't think he's ever going to be a top flight shot blocker, but he has a potential to be a rim protector. I can see how they believe that that's a possibility, because
I'm going to have to carry the torch for Zach Collins this year.
Yeah, you're going to for me, because I'm just really not going to get too high or too low on him. My expectations for him are so low that anything above that is great. That's why I think honestly getting on the court for 10 or 12 minutes is a win for him. But as far as the fouls go between him and Nurkic, any big for Portland, you're going to get in foul trouble. The perimeter defense is crap. That hasn't changed. They didn't add anybody. They haven't done anything to change that. So when guys are getting ahead of steam running downhill at you, that's going to be a problem. And here's the other thing: Portland's playing at a much faster pace right now in the preseason through 3 games than they did at any point in time last year.
Okay.
Their pace last year was at 96 possessions a game. Right now, they're almost at 107.
Whoa, that's 11 possessions more?
Yeah, and that doesn't sound like that much, but
no, that sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar, I mean, that's league average last year was 96.5, 97, I believe. 107 would have been right there at the very top in the league. That's 7 seconds or less Suns type offense.
So what do you attribute that to? And then how does that relate to the fouling?
Well, here's the thing: is if you're getting more possessions, that means more transition. You're running up and down the floor more often. Number 1, you're getting tired. Mm-hmm. Number 2, if you're not hitting shots, the other opponent's getting back and they're getting more possessions in transition. So that's putting more pressure on your defense. If you're not back and set, now there's more opportunities for fouls to arise. Okay. So there's a couple things that are in play here. You may have cross matches when you get back in transition defensively. Your point guard may be on a small forward. Your small forward may be on a point guard. Your center may be on a point guard.
So when people are running rapidly back to cover to get set for defense in transition, they might not end up guarding the position that they're meant to guard, at least initially, until you
exactly at a faster pace and with more possessions. There's more opportunity for chaos.
There's opportunity for everyone to foul.
Exactly, and so you're ultimately when you're getting these more plays in transitions, the idea, for at least for the opponent, is they are just like Portland. They want to either get to the rim, in transition, that's the easiest shot, or get to the rim and kick out for the open shot. So where's that pressure constantly going to be at? In the lane around the paint. So that's where you see guys like Collins and Nurkic getting into foul trouble. If you look up and down the line for really all the bigs, it's the bigs that are racking up the fouls.
Should we worry about how many fouls the Trailblazers are committing, or shouldn't we? Or should we just wait?
Screw it.
You're all for it.
You're not going to play better defensively.
Okay.
I mean, unless by some miracle that Dame and CJ turn into average or plus defenders, this is who they are. So you might as well play 7 seconds or less type offense. Generate more possessions. Give your big guns more opportunities to score. And if the fouls rack the fouls up on the opponents. Damian Lillard is getting to the free throw line like an absolute monster right now. He's getting 9 free throw attempts a game. So, I mean, if these guys are putting that same pressure back on the opponent, then it's whatever. It's a fair trade. As long as you're big, as long as you can keep Nurkic, Dame, and CJ out of foul trouble, you should be okay.
Okay, but I'm worried about Nurkic being in foul trouble.
I'm not.
Okay.
I honestly, the way he moves and the fouls that he's been picking up, I think some of them have been kind of goofy fouls, if that makes sense. I think he's trying some things. I think he's trying to generate steals. I think he's reaching a little too much, trying to make too much happen. Because I think he's generated like 2 steals a game so far. I think he's had 2 steals every game, if I'm not mistaken. So he's trying to get in passing lanes. He's trying to poke the ball free. He's trying to, again, generate extra possessions for Portland to get out and run. This is something that we've talked about in Portland really since Damian got here. Is this team really should probably push the pace a little bit more. And it looks like right now they are. So if there's some growing pains associated with getting out and running more, I'm okay with that. I'm totally and perfectly okay with them going through issues like this. If that means that, because I mean,
I'm going to trust you on this one.
They're not. The bottom line is they're not going to play better defense.
They're not going to play better defense if they don't foul some.
Yeah, I mean, not even just that. You have to find another way to win.
Okay.
And getting more possessions by playing a little bit more aggressive, getting in passing lanes, trying to generate some steals, and getting out and running a little bit more is going to give you a better opportunity to win by giving you more opportunities to score. Great. Now, if by some sort of magic they play better defense, whether it be by scheme or effort or whatever, awesome. But I just don't expect that to be the case. The more natural assumption, the more natural growth here is for them to just be better offensively.
Okay.
So,
well, I will put my tender heart in your hands and not worry about fouls right now.
Never a good idea.
Okay, let's move on and talk about another thing that we talked about last week, which was what Stotts said about going to Nurk early and seeing what happens if they go to him early in the shot clock. What did you see?
So that kind of feeds into getting the ball up and down the floor. Let Nurkic, who's dropped 35 pounds, get in the paint earlier. Get him into pick and rolls earlier before set defenses come. He's been phenomenal in the pick and roll, pick and pop game. And while I love his footwork, the hashtag feetwork, and
you're really trying to get that one going.
I love it. Always have, always will. He looks great when he catches the ball in the post. Like he looks under control. The timing and the speed of the footwork is phenomenal. Then he elevates for the shot and he rushes it and it rattles out. And you're just sitting there going, what the hell just happened? Like
Because everything looks great up until the release.
Yeah, and he'll spin like he had that move in the first game where he spun baseline. It was on Marquise Chris or Alex Len. I can't remember who it was. It was guarding.
I think it was Chris.
But he just abused him with the inside fake and then the baseline spin. But when he spun real fast, he got to his position, and what did he do? The shot was under control. He elevated and he laid it in. It was beautiful. Everything looked smooth as silk. And then he had a couple possessions where he basically went to the same move, and then he rushed the living hell out of the shot. And you're like, what are you doing? You had all the time in the world. You beat him by a mile, man. Stop that. And the numbers reflect that. So you look at what Nurkic has done in the post so far, and granted, the synergy numbers are synergy numbers in preseason, but they're crap.
The Nurkic's numbers?
Yeah, I mean, his post numbers are awful.
Okay.
In 6 possessions, he scored 1 time.
Okay.
And that was that one move.
Okay. And he hasn't been able to replicate that.
No. So
do you think that is an issue? Like, are you worried about that?
Yeah, this is something we talked about last week on the podcast. Is he needs to get under control.
Okay.
That's the big thing here, because he has all of the tools. There's nothing about his post game that doesn't scream it should be elite. Because he's incredibly quick for his size. And his size is in the upper 1% of the NBA. The number of guys who have that size with that footwork and that speed is limited to like 3 people. It's him, it's Joel Embiid, and God.
Yeah, who else is there?
Beyond DeMarcus. I mean that's really who we're talking about here. Guys who have unparalleled size and strength with footwork and speed. I mean, there just aren't 270-pound dudes in the NBA right now who can do that.
So your thought is if he just slows down,
he needs to slow down a half step,
collect himself, mentally slow down maybe too, like
because he can beat nearly anybody in the post. Because he's strong enough to just move anybody he wants. Can
you imagine how hard it must be to control the momentum when you're 7 feet whatever and 270 pounds? I mean,
I'm 6 foot 260, and when my momentum gets going one way, I got a low center of gravity, and I got a big butt. I mean, I have post butt to the max, and it's tough for me to control that momentum.
Yeah, so that must be adding
really
hard.
Literally another foot to me, and trying to control that. While somebody else is 260, 70 pounds is pushing me, while worrying about somebody dropping down from the backside. Yeah, I can seriously understand how ridiculously hard that must be. But that's also why I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to play in the NBA.
Do you think how long do you think it goes until it becomes a concern where Stotts goes, oh, that's not a plan for us to use? Or do you think that
it has to be a threat? It always has to be a threat. So it's on him. I mean,
so even if he can't score, he can still be a threat, though, right? Because he can still move people around and kick it out to somebody.
Exactly. And in worst case scenario is he backs somebody real deep and goes to a face-up. Because his face-up game is still incredibly good. So getting deeper post position and forcing a defense to cave in, or allowing him to face up deeper into the paint, that's totally fine. The evolution of his jumper already gives me hope. That those skills can continue to be honed and refined, because everything about his post game screams, elite.
Yeah.
So
he just needs it to all come together.
It needs to all come together, because we've seen what it looks like when it all comes together. Marquise Chris saw what it looks like when it all comes together. You get absolutely roasted, and you have zero opportunity to do anything about it. So.
Let's move from the front court to the back court, and I want to talk about Evan Turner as the backup point guard, or as the ball handler. We talked about that. What are your thoughts?
Ironically, backup ball handler Evan Turner is also hanging out in the post. He's got just as many post-up opportunities as Jusuf Nurkic does so far in the preseason. And actually, his numbers are much, much better than Nurkic's. And this is something we saw towards the tail end of last year, when Evan Turner started to be a lot more productive, was when they got him the ball at the elbow and the pinch post and allowed him to facilitate and post up guards. Because there's just not many guards in the NBA that can handle a 6'7" Evan Turner who has a refined post game. He just think of him like, and this may be borderline sacrilege, think of him like Andre Miller or Chauncey Billups. Actually, more like Andre, because Andre couldn't hit a damn shot outside the free throw line to save his life either.
But he could sure as heck get shots for other people.
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
what I've been seeing out of Evan Turner.
He worked in the post and in the high post. Andre Miller is one of the, I think he's still top 8 in assists all time in the NBA. And a lot of it was on drive-in kicks, but a lot of it was pounding the air out of the ball at the free throw line extended and then posting somebody up. He would mouse in the house everybody. He took guys that were bigger than him down in the post and ruined them, both with his post game and his ability to pass from that area.
Oh, this is great because it gives me an excuse to go back and watch more Andre Miller highlights, which I do more than you would think because I loved Andre Miller. And what I liked his creativity because alley-oops are my favorite. I know it's like really cheap, but I love them. And so I've been waiting for years for somebody to come along who can dish alley-oops like Andre could. And I'm not saying that Evan Turner is that, but I'm saying he's potentially, because he's the kind of guy who will take these chances and make these weird passes that you're like, where did that come from? But that was really cool. I think that I think I like him as the backup point guard, which I have a hard time saying because I've always been saying that we need to get Shabazz in as a true backup point guard. But when push came to shove, having a backup point guard who can see over more people,
it's a lot like a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah,
your ability to see and survey. It's like LeBron James as a point guard. Like the initial genesis of LeBron James as a point guard was LeBron playing in the post and developing that. Like peak LeBron in Miami was 275 pounds of absolute freight train, but posting teams up. His point guardiness was at its zenith when he was point post. That was when he was just an unstoppable force, because if you doubled him, he'd find the open guy every single time. If you didn't, he'd back him down and get to wherever he wanted and then either go to work there or still drop a dime and face up from there. Evan Turner can be not necessarily a poor man's version of that, because that's kind of a slight to what he can do. He's a phenomenal post player. And his ability to see over the top and to create from that position is some of the best in the league. So getting him the ball there is a good idea, because the way he was used and utilized to start the season last year is what contributed to him just looking like absolute crap.
Okay, and how was he being used at the beginning of the year that's different from now?
He was being used as a prototypical point guard above the 3-point line and putting him in pick and rolls with another non-shooter. I mean, if you put Evan Turner in a pick and roll with Ed Davis, that's not going to work, folks. There's so many things that I want to say that I can't say that are 4-letter words that it's just like,
Thank
why?
you for that, Dan. Thank you.
It's just, why? Why would that thought ever cross anyone's mind?
So they were trying to just have him come on and be like whatever Damian was doing and do the same thing. And now you're saying...
What made sense because it was simple and was what people were familiar with. Hey, you know how to run a pick and roll. Here, run this pick and roll. Yeah, he ran pick and roll in Boston, but he ran pick and roll with bigs that either cut hard or were shooters. He had a Zeller on one side and a Olynyk on the other. Either one of them could step out and hit a shot, or either one of them could roll to the rim. And really, as much as people want to complain about Olynyk and Zeller as players, or even a Jared Solinger, they could all shoot and they all cut hard, and really they looked for alley-oops. Like Portland runs backdoor alley-oops and cuts probably less than any team in the NBA.
I know.
Nobody, like, say what you want to about Mason Plumlee, and I certainly said plenty of negative things to say about Mason, but Plumlee was the only one on the team other than Mo Harkless who wants to cut or wanted to cut to the rim and wanted to dunk. Like Dame would dunk, 10 times a year. But Plumlee, I think in his time here, I think he finished the top 5 in dunks every year he was here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've spent a lot of time this summer combing through the alley-oop numbers, trying to figure out who's going to get me my favorite play. And Mason used to provide for me, especially the backward ones.
Zach Collins is probably Portland's greatest hope for that because, again, I haven't seen a lot from the young man, but I have noticed that he does have a natural feel for cutting,
mm-hmm.
and he likes to dunk. So if you're looking for somebody on Portland who could be that guy, Collins is your best bet. Caleb Swanigan is not that guy. As much as I love Caleb, while he has more bounce than Zach Randolph, I have more bounce than Zach Randolph. But still, Caleb is not that guy.
Okay, so let's round out the discussion about Turner as the backup point guard.
I don't know how much of Turner is the backup point guard is out of better utilizing Turner right now, as opposed to not using Shabazz because he's injured.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing that I can't get a true read on right now. Would we be seeing as much Evan Turner out there dominating the ball as the primary facilitator and creator if Shabazz wasn't injured in the preseason? Would Shabazz be getting more of these minutes right now?
Well, don't you think the lack of Alan Crabbe is what's getting a large part of the reason that ET is getting more minutes?
I would expect Turner to get more minutes anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have also expected Napier to get some of those minutes to fill in. I think Napier has a chance to be a bit more successful. I haven't seen enough of Napier to really get a good grasp on how he's going to be as a catch and shoot player, which is something he's probably going to have to do if Turner's going to be that primary ball handler with the second unit. So that'll be different to see how that plays out. But also, could Napier or will Napier be the primary facilitator with the second unit with CJ or Damian as a spot up guy? Because as we were talking about pre-podcast here when we were discussing kind of how Portland's offense has kind of matured and changed since last season, Portland's number one go-to play, based on the synergy stats right now, is the spot up.
Mm-hmm.
It's not pick and roll.
And that's different from last year?
Oh, God, yes.
Okay.
Pick and roll ball handler has been Portland's bread and butter since Damian got here.
Okay.
That has been where that's been the biggest part of their play scheme for a while now. So for them to all of a sudden get into that mindset.
And these are on the break, everyone's running down and you're spotting up before the other team has a chance to get set.
That's part of it. And I think that's why the numbers are different. So last year, 18.4% of the time was where Portland ranked in the spot up as far as where their offense came from. Nearly 22% of the time is pick and roll ball handler.
Okay.
So, which is kind of crazy when you start to think about it, because they lost arguably their best spot up shooter.
Yeah, right.
Now, CJ is an elite spot up shooter as well.
Good
Both
Lord.
these
There's
guys,
no shot that he can't make right now.
Yeah, but we're talking about probably two of the top 8 spot up shooters in the NBA as far as catch and shoot goes. CJ and Crabbe. Say what you want to about Crabbe, about when he takes and when doesn't take shots. When he takes them from the spot up, he makes them.
Mm-hmm.
He's lethal from that spot. And so is CJ.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, as far as Portland's offense goes, it's spot up, then transition, then pick and roll ball handler.
Wow, so the pick and roll is now in the third
position,
most frequently used.
And that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Portland getting more possessions. Those more possessions are coming because they're looking to score in transition. They're looking to score in transition off the spot up before defense can get set. When they lost Alan Crabbe, they lost their ability to have gravity in the weak side or in the short corner. So to compensate for that, and this is at least my belief right now, is that they're getting out and running to get better opportunities earlier in the clock for Dame and CJ or anybody else who can work in the catch and shoot in the spot up scenarios.
Okay, I'm with you on that, because when they had time to set up, they had Crabbe running around and somebody had to be on them because they knew that he was such a good shooter. They had to have somebody running around, which gave them time to get set up. And so now, because we don't have the luxury of someone who's going to, an additional person who's going to draw attention, get the shot off faster.
And where those spot ups are coming from is different.
Okay, where are they coming from?
Yusuf Nurkic is now a legit threat, or that's how they're featuring him as a spot up shooter.
Oh my gosh.
The drive and kick is turning into, a mid-range catch for Yusuf Nurkic, or an 18-foot catch for Yusuf Nurkic. Caleb Swanigan is sitting at the three-point line. Zach Collins caught and shot from the corner and hit a three. So where these guys are as far as positionally and where they're catching the ball, Myers Leonard, you can say what you want to about him. He catches on the wings and above the break. He does not catch in the corner. If Swanigan or Collins all of a sudden become three-point shooters in the corner, that's a big-time change from, at least positionally, where these guys are catching and shooting from. Because those were roles that were typically occupied by Alan Crabbe.
Dan, you're sounding pretty optimistic to me.
It's just very, very different. I was wondering how Terry Stotts, and I shouldn't have questioned this, because Stotts is incredibly creative with what he's done in his time, especially when he's limited in certain scenarios. But I wondered how they were going to compensate for the loss of Alan Crabbe. And everybody kind of giggles at that because of how Crabbe has been in his time in Portland. He's been more aloof than Nicholas Batum. And that's, I think, was saying something. And with Batum, I think you got a lot more on both sides. So there's a lot of knocks to Crabbe for what he did or didn't do. But there's no denying his effect on opposing defenses.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot leave Alan Crabbe in the corner on a three. You can't leave him at the three-point line.
Right. He was a fine shooter. He was a very fine
phenomenal
shooter.
I mean, we're talking about the upper echelon, top 5 3-point shooters in the NBA. He's like a Kyle Korver or a JJ Redick. Any of these guys that are just absolutely lights out from three. And when you lose that, and the guy that you're putting in his place is Maurice Harkless or Evan Turner or Al-Farouq Aminu, who are some of the absolute worst three-point shooters in the league at their position, that is a staggering shift.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to come up with unique and creative ways to compensate for that. Generating more possessions, putting positional flexibility out there, and putting guys out there in positions at the 4, at the 5 that can hit those shots. Having those guys develop those shots. Drafting players that could potentially hit those shots is huge.
Mm-hmm. What you talk about, the increase in the speed of play, it strikes me that the last few games, and granted it's preseason, they're not in mid-season form, but I've been thinking that they look tired, and I wonder if, and that's just me looking and going, they look tired, but I wonder if they might actually be a little bit fatigued, because it is a speed that they're not quite used to running, and of course they'll get better at it, but
there's a couple things.
It takes a lot of concentration. It takes a lot of mental concentration to go that fast too, if it's really a shift.
Yeah, you have to get used to playing that fast. It doesn't matter how much training you do. It's going to help, but it's a mindset, and it's a physical thing. You have to get into that kind of shape, game shape wise, to run like that, and it takes some time. No, part of it could just be the preseason and the different units and the sets not being fully evolved yet, and we could see Portland go back to what they're used to and what they're familiar with. But honestly, I hope that this is something that's new and different, and that they stick with. I think it's good for them. So getting a guy like Evan Turner to get out on the early break and getting him deeper position in the paint or above the free throw line to create or get his shots from there, and sucking the defense down and letting a secondary break for a guy like Caleb Swanigan to pull up at the 3-point line and catch and shoot. Or if CJ's out there or Dame's out there with the second unit, for them to come on the secondary break and catch above the break for an uncontested 3. Getting those guys better shots in a position that makes them more effective earlier in the clock and requires less execution is nothing but good for Portland.
So it sounds like you're feeling kind of hopeful too for this team. Am I projecting my own thoughts onto you?
Hopeful
or
in a
what
way
you...
that they're not. This is going to sound awful, but I'm hopeful that they're not going to be as bad as I thought they were going to be. Like losing Alan Crabbe is.
Could you just stop with "I'm feeling hopeful"?
As much as losing the counting stats hurts, I believe it was Zach Lowe put it out there earlier today, talking about how they're running an offense basically with two non-shooters on the floor at all times, and how antiquated that is. And it is. Like Portland, we've talked about this before. Portland had the market cornered on 3-point shooting a few years ago. Like their entire lineup, save Robin Lopez, was a 40% 3-point shooter. Like it was absolutely insane when you look at it. You had Dame, CJ, Crabbe, Batum, Matthews, Will Barton, Aaron Aflalo. I mean, you just go up and down the list of guys that Portland had, and you're like, holy shnikes, everyone could hit threes. Now you've got Dame, CJ.
Full stop.
Dame. I mean, Swanigan could be that guy. Could Collins become a semi-reliable 3-point shooter? Sure. If Myers Leonard's out there and he's got his mind right, could he be a threat? Yeah. I still think whether or not you like Myers or not, when he's on the floor, opposing defenses still worry about him. So that's a viable thing. Nurkic has taken, I think, like 4 or 5 22.5-foot 3-pointers or 2-pointers.
He's inching his way back out there.
Yeah, he needs to get his damn foot behind the line. He's got Darrell Wright disease right now. If you're going to be that deep, just take the step back and understand where you are on the floor. And I think that'll come with time. But there is some hope that they're going to integrate some wrinkles into the offense. And the inverse has been true. This is something that flies counterintuitive as far as analytics go. They've also gotten Dame, CJ, Nurkic, Turner, pretty much everybody who loves that shot, McCollum particularly, a ton of shots in the mid-range off of completely new sets. And I think part of that is to make the defense honor parts of the floor they wouldn't normally honor, to free up the paint and to free up the 3-point line for Dame and CJ in particular.
Okay.
So there are a lot of things going on right now that are brand new and new wrinkles and new flow to the offense beyond just playing faster.
Well, there's a lot to watch for, and I'm really anxious now to go out there and look at Turner playing point guard from the post, because I hadn't ever thought about it, him playing point guard from a completely different place than Damian plays it. So you've given me lots to want to go look at, and the game is starting not long from now. So we should wrap this up. Do you want to take us out of here? 45 minutes
to count down here until we get to see him play the Kangs. So yeah, as always,
everything could be completely wrong that we talked about today. We might never, ever see any of it again because it was all preseason anomaly.
It was all preseason. They just scrapped it. Screw it. We're not sticking with it. First of all, I do want to thank some of the stuff that we talked about today are things that we facilitated from Twitter earlier this week. Ty Forshee, I wanted to say we didn't get a chance to get to your question. You asked about the Blazers sagging off 3-point shooters, one pass away. That's one we'll go into more when we talk about the Blazers defense.
Yeah.
Next week. Brandon McIntyre asked about Myers Leonard and whether or not the potential that he's shown, or is it kind of how it figures out and who gets the final roster spot. Those are all things we're going to touch on next week. But we got everything else that we talked about today. Were a part of the discussion that I had, at least potentially, or specifically, I should say, as far as what the Blazers have done offensively and kind of evolved from the podcast last week. So what I'm saying is keep those questions coming.
Yes.
Because they give us we have a ton of stuff to talk about in general, but if people are asking more specific or particular questions, we can address those as we kind of go along in the grander scheme of things, as well as work them in. And you two guys in particular, don't think we're overlooking you. I've got those here. We're going to get to them when we get to those topics. So yes, at DMorang, you can hit my DMs, or you can hit me up on Twitter. You can send them to the Blazers Edge Twitter handle. You can ask them there because they'll undoubtedly find their way to us. Tara, you want to let them know where they can find you?
Yes, I am at TCB Biggs. I feel like I am not cool enough to say anything about DMs because I just feel like that's for like, a generation after mine. So you can definitely find me on Twitter though, at TCBBigs.
Excellent. As always, you can find us on iTunes, on Stitcher, anywhere else for your podcast needs, all at almightyballer.com. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, follow us on Twitter, follow the Blazers Edge on Twitter, follow Tara on Twitter, follow everybody on Twitter because that's where we're also on Instagram. As always, I'm Dan Morang for Tara Bowen Biggs. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Okay, I can't wait to go watch the game now.